Okay, we are live. So, Philip, thank you once again for joining me for this week's chat for To Your Eternity. We're doing volumes, 7 and 8 this week? There they are. Do you want to, what do you reckon the covers represent this time?
Ooh.
I mean, I think volume 8 is obvious, but 7, I don't know so much.
Yeah. It's weird. I'm seeing myself backwards. So yes, volume 8 is very obvious whose dream this is. It's Bon Chien's dream.
I'm going to call it Bon.
Bon, yes. It's a funny name, actually, and not just because of the rest of the name, but Bon Chien means good dog, really, in French.
Interesting. So I don't know what it is in Japanese, but I know that in One Piece there's a character that's very eccentric and over the top that is called Bon Chan or Bon Clay. So I don't know if that's like a character archetype that oftentimes, or if it happens to be a coincidence.
I'm sure that some of our commenters will be able to enlighten us on that.
Yes.
But yeah, so that's got to be his dream. Now, whose dream is this? I really am not quite 100% sure. But
do you think it's Fushi?
That's what I was guessing. So does he have dreams, I guess, is one, or do they have dreams? And then whose hands are these? All the different lives that he's touching, perhaps? Is this very, yeah, then that's my best guess, is that it's Fushi and Fushi's desire to connect with other people. But those people keep dying all the time. So these are transparent hands of many colors. Because of all the diverse people that he's meeting, but they're also ghosts that are sort of part of them, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely took it in a similar way, that it's Fushi's dream and the relationships that he's lost, the people who have passed away that he wishes were more present with him, that he's holding on to.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very sad.
I mean, it is. And, I sort of had I guess for me, like maybe a little breakthrough with this series this time around. By the way, I enjoyed volume 7 and 8 much more than I did volumes 4, 5, and 6. So I'm happier right now. I'm thinking, okay, there's something here I'm liking. And I think part of it was just me deciding, you know what? This is not a conventional story. This is like, I read a book once called Sarum, and it's not about a particular group of people so much as a place and the people who inhabit it over time. It goes from like Stonehenge, the building of Stonehenge, all the way to the building of Salisbury Cathedral, because it takes place where Stonehenge is, and Salisbury is right nearby. And so it's this very interesting look at a place with the people who come and go, and you realize there are patterns to all these lives over this long span of time. And I'm starting to feel like, okay, To Your Eternity it's a dialogue in a way between Fushi and the beholder, with all these people who come into the story, and necessarily because they're mortal, like you and me, and the people we know, the ones that we usually want to identify with in the story, are ephemeral. They're fleeting. They're in and out of the story. So we're sad to see them come and go, but that's life in a way. So it's like it's zooming out. The perspective is way zoomed out, and maybe it's not the most comfortable feeling in the world, but it makes you feel like, gosh, we people are really just like little motes of dust, and from this long perspective. And you realize, okay, the beholder, who is still not my favorite entity here, to quote our friend Alan, he's kind of a douchebag, but you could see where his perspective of us would be. Yeah, they're just kind of like little insects, so yeah, that's how I'm taking it now. And that perspective shift has helped me some. Plus I just think I maybe connected with some of the interesting characters, they were fun in a way, I thought. I don't know, what did you think of it?
Good. I like that perspective. I like that kind of like zooming out, this is a different type of story perspective. I think I could get on board with that a little bit. These last couple volumes lost me a little bit. I'm on the decline with the series, unfortunately.
Yeah,
I don't know. I feel like I've been asking, and this is so unfair of me, but I've been asking for a break in the pattern, and then I've broken the pattern, but I'm just like, okay, but now it doesn't even feel like the same series anymore. it's very different now. So I'm not giving up on it, and I'm I'm not trying to force it to be something that it's not. I'm just still waiting to kind of grapple with exactly what's going on. We'll discuss it a little bit, but there's a few things that have been introduced that I'm like, what are you doing? Where are you going with this? So it'll be interesting. I'm looking forward to discussing some of those things with you. But one of the first major things that happened in Volume 7 is that Fushi he's alone for 40 years and turns to nautical life for quite a bit of time,
Yeah.
which I thought was pretty, as an ocean loving girl, as a fish myself. I love the idea of just going off to the ocean and existing there. And if you die, okay, you become a new creature. It's fine. I'm an octopus now.
Yeah. Yeah, that was cool. That was, I think, Fushi connecting with the world, just experiencing existence from, he's getting this long view of things. And yeah, he was a little ocean critter for a while. Also, he eats knockers.
Yes, he does do that. Yeah. It's interesting that you say it was him connecting with the world, because I viewed it as him isolating from the world, not wanting those connections anymore, to see more people die, so just getting as far away from people as he can.
Yeah, you're absolutely right in one sense. But in another sense, I think he is still interacting with life, even down in the depths of the ocean, and he experiences loss down there too. He has a little friend, a little fishy friend, who dumps him when the fishy friend finds a girlfriend or whatever. So, so there's loss no matter where you go. That just seems to be the nature of life, I guess.
Fishy can't help himself but developing connections. It's just a part of his nature as someone who's becoming more and more human, even in fish form.
Yes, yeah, that's right. So yeah, that just seems to be what he's made for, I guess.
Yes.
And the one thing that I find still very intriguing about this series is the dynamic between him and the beholder. And I'm still not sure about everything, but I really like that dialogue, and that's interesting to me as the different characters. Yeah.
It had a lot of intrigue, because the beholder seems to both know a lot that he's keeping from us, but also there's still so much uncertainty that he still claims to have. I don't know their thoughts. I don't know why they're doing what they're doing, but he definitely knows more than we do.
Yeah. And the other constant element in this is the threat of the knockers, which, I'll be interested to see what Yoshitoki Oima does with this. I hope there'll be more than just this in and out of the story threat. I'm hoping even, and I think there's elements of this that got interesting, where one of the knockers lives within the arm of the descendants of what's her name, Hayase, who become the leaders of the Guardians. And so this is a really interesting relationship that they have with Fushi that develops here.
Yeah. So we can talk about that a little bit, because that's really interesting. So we meet Hisame, which is the granddaughter of Hayase, and she's trying to fulfill the will of her grandmother. So this idea of the will, this is something that I think I've seen, well, obviously, not obvious to you, but obviously it's a big theme in One Piece. But I've seen it in a couple, One Piece. Everything comes back to One Piece. But I've seen it in a couple of series, so I don't know if it's like a common theme with manga and Japanese art. I'm still relatively new to it all as well. But anyway, so the idea is Hayase, when she was going to die, she said, "My will live on," and it kind of functions as a reincarnation for the granddaughter, which is interesting, because I wonder then, does that mean that Hisame, does that mean that Hisame, when she died, she passed her will on to the next generation, and so on? Because multiple generations visited Fushi before we finally got to Kahaku, who we've landed with for a while here. So what do you think? How do you take the will passing on? Do you think that each one is passing it on, and that's being passed on, the knocker too is being passed on along with the will? Or do you think the knocker is affecting them, and that's truly what's keeping them going more so than the will is?
Very interesting questions. So one thing we know for sure is that it's through the knocker that they're able to find Fushi, because the knockers are
Hmm.
attracted to Fushi, which really makes me wonder, maybe the beholder knows more about the knockers than he's telling Fushi.
Hmm.
I think there's something he's not telling Fushi about the knockers. The other thing
I
that
absolutely agree.
the other thing that I find interesting is when the beholder talks with Fushi about, I think it's Phi, Fye, which I tried to look up, and I just got a bunch of slang terms that I didn't know about.
I think it's just his way of saying the will or the soul, or
Soul, spirit, yeah.
yeah, multiple versions of the same thing.
Yeah, so he talks about a body being a vessel for the Phi, or the soul, or
The
spirit,
soul.
have you, and reincarnation. He talks about the idea
Yeah.
of reincarnation, and so we're going to see this, I think, as well with Pyorin. But what we see with Hisame, which initially I was saying hi, same. I just, that was terrible pronunciation, but it's Hisame.
Hisame.
Hisame. Okay, that's better. Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. I'm repeating what you're saying. I don't know.
Okay. I thought you were giving me the right pronunciation there. Okay.
No, I'm doing my darndest. I don't know anything.
Okay. So anyway, she may or may not be the actual reincarnation of Hayase, but the other thing that the beholder says, which I thought was interesting, is even if you somehow even if reincarnation is a thing, you're still not exactly the same person that you were before. There's going
Exactly.
to be carry over some, I don't know if memory is the right word, because you don't have access exactly to that person's memory.
They had like a journal or writings that they were going off of.
Yeah.
That was keeping them. I think a will is, as far as I understand it, I think it's like it's your dream. So we have a dream on the cover of each volume, and I think and we saw Hayase's dream of bearing Fushi's child in the one volume cover. And what does Hisame try to do when she meets him? She tries to bear his child, because that was Hayase's dream. And so
which is kind of weird coming from a 9-year-old girl,
And she didn't know what she was asking for.
No.
She had no idea. Yeah,
I mean, there was that innocent scene where I think you're supposed to sleep. I don't know what that means, but they fall asleep next to each other, and like, okay.
Yeah. So there's a lot of layers here, because one, when Tonari first comes back into the story, she recognizes potentially that the knocker is affecting Hisame's mind. And so like there might be some sort of control that's happening here. We also have the fact that when Hisame first tried to sleep next to Fushi, because she thought that that was how she would bear his child, before she even said that she wanted to bear his child, she just went up to him while he was asleep and tried to sleep next to him. And then the knocker took her over and tried to attack him against her will, right? So the knocker can control them physically somewhat. Tonari thinks it can also potentially influence their mind. Then you have the will, in the case of Hayase, to bear the child of Fushi, that each descendant continues to try to do, it seems. And then you have to ask the question in regards to, I lost his name, in regards to Kahaku. Thanks. In regards to Kahaku, if the knocker is influencing these things, are his feelings genuine too, or his feelings his own? Because they do have their own personalities, but they're carrying the will. But the knocker, there's so many layers going on right now.
Yeah, because Kahaku also is very attracted to Fushi when Fushi is in Perona's form.
Right, and that's relevant too, because Kayaku, it seems like every granddaughter or every female descendant was just doing her duty, trying to go to Fushi, present herself to Fushi, whereas Kayaku didn't try to do that, didn't try to fulfill that duty until he became attracted to one of the forms. And then, so it seems legit, but then I still wonder about the influence of the knocker. I have so many questions in regards to how this is working.
My question was, why isn't the knocker in whoever it is, Hisame, Kahaku, whichever descendant of Hayase it is, why isn't that knocker trying to kill or get Fushi like all the other knockers? What element? Because
the will is to bear his child. They don't want to kill him.
I think that's the most obvious answer. But there's something going on in the dynamic between the knocker and the person, the vessel that is carrying on this will that is.
And then you have to ask the question. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say it's changing them both. It's changing the knocker and the person, both.
Yeah.
Right.
I guess so. And then you have to ask the question: why is a knocker even trying to help fulfill a person's will? What is the knocker? What is it doing? Why is it trying to attack Fushi until it's in alignment with another person, and then it's not trying to attack? Like the standard knockers that come in to fight Fushi to take him out, but then you have this random knocker that's bonded with Hayase that's now trying to help fulfill Hayase's will, I think.
Yeah. So I don't know how viable this is because the knockers have done a lot of damage. They've hurt a lot of people. So they're not
killed a lot of people.
Killed a lot of people. Yeah. So they're not going to be suddenly, oh, they're actually the good guys. You know, I don't think that's viable as
no.
I'm not going to buy that.
I don't think so either.
But there's more to them than certainly Fushi knows at this point, I think. And the beholder is holding back something. So anyway.
Yes, I very much agree. And I think it's a lot more of read and find out. We did expect to see Tonari again. Did you expect to see her again so soon?
So 40 years went by and I thought, oh, Tonari must be old. And then of course she's like my age when she shows up. So I was very happy to see her again. I love seeing her smile in that moment. That was a beautiful scene when she got to see Fushi. I was sad that she was there and then gone again. And I had one thing that I unless I missed something, there's a clear mistake in the book, in the story. Okay. So here on this page, and I don't have numbers, unfortunately, so I can't tell you the number, but it's after they were attacked by the first Hisame drugs them, but Tonari doesn't get affected because she's given herself doses of all kinds of drugs over the years. And then there's this fight between her and Hisame / the knocker. And she is poisoned by the knocker, basically. She's infected. And that's a death sentence. Yeah, that's a death sentence. So we see that, what's his name? Sandal.
Sander, I think it's Sander. Is it Sandal?
Sandal.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're probably
anyway, whatever his name is, he's a doctor. So Fushi comes in the room, and it seems that he's explaining what happened, and then Fushi says, "Why did it attack Tonari?" Okay, it says, "Why did it attack Tonari?" He uses her name. That's Fushi right there.
And he doesn't realize yet that it's Tonari.
And a few pages later, it's clear he doesn't know it's Tonari. And then
you're right.
He changes into all these forms, and he can't change into Sandal and Tonari. She's like, "Oh, they're still alive," and they're like, "Ha!"
Yeah, it's like a big realization.
Yeah, so he doesn't know. He's not supposed to know. But then, why did he say her name there? I think that's a mistake.
0 stars. Fault. It's all wrong. No, that's a really good catch. I didn't even catch that because that scene where Fushi is changing into each form and then he realizes they're still alive and he's so relieved and he's so happy that they're still alive. Yeah, it was such a beautiful scene. It went out my brain that he had just named her.
Yeah, so that's clearly a mistake. I'm surprised it's even in there still. But
yeah. Interesting. Anyway. You may be the first person that caught it.
I doubt that. Somebody could point out why I'm wrong, I'm sure, but I can't.
I don't know. I think you're right. That seems pretty straightforward.
Yeah, it did to me. But I do love the scene that follows where he can't change into their form. He's like, "Oh, she's still alive. They're still alive," and they do exchange a look between them, which is, because she's about to die, and we all know that.
Yeah. And she's doing all this poison training specifically so that she can be of use to Fushi when she does die. And it is interesting that she stayed on that island all that time, really working to revitalize it. And then as soon as she leaves, she dies. But I think she knew that that was a very strong likelihood for her because she knew who she was going for and she knew the dangers that that brought. But I mean, I guess she feels like she's left the island in good hands and now it's time for her to be in the hands of Fushi in whatever way she can help him.
Yeah, yeah, that was sweet. I also love how she kind of asked him, "So, what did you think of Tonari, by the way?" Oh, she was so obnoxious.
At first.
Yeah.
But I realized she was wonderful after that.
Yes, and I love the smile, the
Yes.
Tonari smile that we get when she is just before she passes away. I mean, that was kind of heart wrenching. But this is this nature of this series.
Yeah. The quote, "Think back on when everyone was alive whenever you can. Just that will make me glad I lived." That was a beautiful quote, I thought.
Yeah, I agree.
So this is when oh, yeah. I know, I love it. I really have grown to love Tonari. She's become such a great character, or had become such a great character.
Yeah.
So Kahaku shows up in the story at this point and falls in love. Well, sees Perona, instantly is very attracted to Fushi in this form and falls for him. And then this is when Bon captures them. So it's revealed that Tonari sent Bon to them. Right? Do you remember that when we see the flashback and he's attracted to the peasant girl and that's a big thing and they like try to get that out of him and they're like, if he survives the night, he won't be cursed by this anymore. And then we see the ghosts that he can see.
Yes,
But we also see Tonari show up and she's like, in 15 years, come find me, right?
Yeah, correct. And you follow the big bird or whatever. Yeah, yeah. Yes, so
that
Tonari,
also
Ghost Tonari has been prepping him. Yeah, yeah.
Oh my gosh. I'm so stupid.
What?
I took it as Tonari when she was still alive, but that doesn't make sense. I took it as Tonari when she was still alive. She went and found Bon and told him, in 15 years, come find me. And then 15 years later, she went to Fushi, presented her body to him to use so that Bon could recognize, okay, this is Fushi. This is who I need to find. But I guess it was Ghost Tonari that showed up to him.
I think so. I think she was a ghost by that point. Yeah.
Okay.
I think so. That's how I read it. Because of course, Bon can see and interact with ghosts.
Yes.
This is a unique
and
ability.
Apparently he can see his future as well. So he sees himself as king.
I guess, although I'm not sure how much I trust his future predicting abilities.
That's exactly what I was thinking too, because he said, I can see everything. I can see everything in every realm, all the time, always. So the ghost thing, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Right. The ghost thing is for sure. But the other, I mean, I don't know, maybe it will be. Maybe he will gain his kingship and it'll be bittersweet because of the way he got it or something like that. You know, there's a lot of opportunity here. But he definitely sees a future. Yeah, that's his dream. He sees a future of himself as king. And he sees Fushi as his outlet to get there. Much like Tonari, who saw Fushi as a means to get what she needed to get off the island. Now we have Bon, who too initially using Fushi, and we'll see where that takes us. Already, he's made some big strides over these last 2 volumes.
Yeah, he's an interesting character because he at times can come across as a mustache twirling villain almost. That he's
really
incredibly well. Not that's an exaggeration, but he is incredibly self-centered. Let's put it that way.
He is incredibly self-centered.
And
even that I think is a little unfair because he's constantly going around telling people, "I'll put you in this week's newsletter," and "Oh, your hair it looks so good." Like everybody loves him because he does care for people. He just also is self-centered. He's both. He's caring and can't see past his own nose.
He's incredibly extravagant and very vivid and full of life. And, there are aspects of his character that I really like. Like, he is thoughtful.
Yeah.
He at times, but other
At
times
times.
he's kind of a jerk. Like when he uses
Absolutely.
somebody as a chair, or when he, it's a weird mixture. It's convincing enough for me, though, all in one character. So I
Yes.
find him somewhat endearing, actually,
Yes.
but he is very self-centered, and that gives him some blind spots, I think. That, like, there is a moment too where he actually breaks and is willing to betray Fushi in order to have his kingship. So,
Yes.
his better nature is overcome at moments by his what I'm calling his self-centeredness.
I think I take it as he is a kind, loving person who genuinely cares, but who is very, for lack of a better word, very privileged. He's
Mm,
grown up in wealth and he's grown up being pampered and he just expects that of the world. So he views Toto, for instance, as you're a chair and oh, look, you can be of use to me. Come, I'm not even going to inquire about you and learn anything about you. I'm just going to go with my first assumptions. And Toto just kind of falls in line with that. Or when Toto is being selfless and offering his food, and Bon is like, great, you know what? You're fat. This is good for you. You'll lose some weight. Like that's
yeah.
so unkind. And I view it kind of as a product of his kingship, or I'm sorry, as a product of his princeship. He's so used to everyone giving him everything that he's learned to expect it. So we have both sides of that from him because of that.
Yeah, I think you're right. Privilege is a big part of why he is so self-centered.
Yes.
And the first thing that ever disrupted that privilege was him discovering that his father wants the second son to be the king after him, because the second son is less self-absorbed. It goes out and does things to help other people. It seems like a good
Right.
person, actually,
Right.
even though Bond calls him snot-nosed all the time. So yeah.
Yeah, Bond uses his wealth and his privilege for extravagancies, and his brother uses it for improving the kingdom. So Bond improves the kingdom in morale, where
Mm,
he treats every individual as if they're valuable, whereas maybe the younger brother benefits the kingdom in more practical ways.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So yeah, Bon Chien is a very interesting character, very flamboyant and fun. I thought he was a bright spot in this arc so far, and
He's an interesting one for sure.
I love that he's complex too. I'm actually, it sounds weird to describe him as simultaneously thoughtful and self-absorbed, but he is, and it
Mhm.
works
Yeah.
somehow. Um,
People are layered, man. They can be
yep,
two things.
yep, they can't even contradict.
Speaking of, that also kind of goes along with the conflict that we see with Fushi and Ka, Ka, what's his name?
Kahaku?
Kahaku, thanks. With Fushi and
Yeah,
Kahaku, where Kahaku tries to pursue Fushi and asked him to marry asked Perona, Fushi in Perona form to
yeah,
marry him, and then like forces his hugs on him. And Fushi goes through forms, and Kahaku says, "I don't care what form you're in, I love you." And
yeah,
and then Perona is the one that physically responds by vomiting, right?
right.
So that also begs the question, when Fushi takes on their forms, we already know that he takes on their forms, their memories. He seems to be taking on their will as well, because Perona is not allowing Fushi any other option because of the history that Perona has with this family line, with this
Hayase
bloodline.
is the one who killed her and March.
And March, yeah.
So that's tragic that he would fall in love with that particular form of Fushi,
Yeah.
given Perona's almost guaranteed negative response.
Rejection.
Somehow her, as you say, her will, that's probably the right word, or her phi, or whatever they were calling it, is existing somehow still in Fushi, and that is a response that she can't control even. So it is tragic for poor Kahaku there, who again, like his he's the first male because I guess his mother didn't have a daughter. So it's interesting to get this other side of it. But he seems to be similarly obsessed, I guess, in a way that's. I'm still trying to figure out what this dynamic is here with the knocker and this whole obsession thing that started with Hayase, and it seems to have been handed down, much the way I guess in real life trauma is handed down.
Sure.
Tendencies are handed down from generation to generation. You can look at families and see these weird repetitions of behavior over and over and over again. I mean, it does make sense in a way.
Yeah. No, definitely. I agree. I also, let's see, I want to ask you, when the scene with Fushi building a house happens and he can only build it piece by piece, and Ban asks him, it's your job to collect everything, right? What happens when you're done? And then the cloaked man, the man in the black cloak, what did you call the observer? Beholder.
Yeah.
He says, I shall grant you freedom. At what point did we establish this? I didn't realize that it was Fushi's job to collect everything.
So my thought on that is, I think the Beholder has told Fushi that his purpose is to preserve life. Is that not right? I mean, from the beginning, that's one of his main tasks, is to preserve. And so one assumes that once he's able to replicate everything, be everything, that he'll have attained a state where everything is indeed preserved, I guess.
Interesting. So I didn't realize that was his goal until this point. And if that's the case, then that makes sense. No wonder the observer didn't try to poke him when he was being the ocean, because he was like, great, you're collecting information for me.
But I think Bond makes a very good point. What does freedom mean? Right? I mean, I don't trust somebody who says, I will grant you your freedom, and what does he mean by that? So again, I do not trust the Beholder at all. And I think it's freedom is something that Fushi is too innocent to interpret in a negative way, but it might just mean, well, then I'll be done with you, and you'll be gone.
Sure.
I don't know. I found that to be a bit of an ominous promise, but
yeah, it was definitely very vague. The Beholder is never truly answering questions that he gets asked.
No.
And speaking of not trusting the Beholder, another thing that he's withholding, we get to see Fushi try to prove, I can't bring her back to life, and he proves it by accidentally bringing this girl back to life. And the Beholder knew the whole time that Fushi had this ability, and when Bond confronts him and then confronts Fushi and says, hey, if it turns out that you can get these people back, will you go with them or will you stay with me? And Fushi says, obviously I'm going with my friend. And so Bond's like, well, then I guess I'm not telling him either. So there's this really huge thing being held from Fushi right now, both by the Beholder and by Bond. Why do you think the Beholder is withholding this information?
Oh, clearly he wants to manipulate Fushi in a certain direction, and he feels that if he knew this, he would abandon the mission that the Beholder wants him to be on.
Yeah.
Whereas Bond also wants to use Fushi and realizes, oh, I can't let him know this. There's a limitation. He has to have known the person before they die in order to make it work, which we find out later when he's given this test by the what were they called? The Benedictor?
Church Benedict, I think.
Something
or
like that.
A Bennett. I think it's Bennett.
Bennett, yes, the Bennett Church or whatever it's called. But they give him this awful test here. Revive this guy, and if you can do it, you must be, heavenly. If not, you must be from the devil. And he never knew this guy who had died days previous. So all he can do is replicate his corpse, right?
Yeah. So I very much
before she died, he met her.
Yes. Yes, and Bond took that when he saw her spirit, and then he saw her spirit leave. He took that as meaning, oh, okay, she's passed on. But in actuality, or her ghost, or whatever we want to call it, in actuality, it disappeared because she was living again. So it is. I do very much agree that the reason the Beholder is keeping them from him is because Fushi, as they discuss when Fushi is captured, is becoming more and more human. And I think the Beholder is trying to keep that from him because he has his own agenda to use Fushi's life for. And it's so sad that Fushi is one of the most innocent characters in all of media, and everyone is just trying to use him. And he has genuine friends, but everywhere he goes, people first see him as a tool and then
Yeah.
have to learn his humanity.
Yeah. I mean, with the exception of maybe like March, who is too young to use him in any way, except maybe as like she wanted to be his mommy. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
but yeah, you're right. I mean, and it's kind of, this is a story, I'm taking it right now. This is a story that is very much about human nature. It
Mhm.
is about our grappling with mortality.
Mhm.
And by having this zooming out perspective, I think is offering a unique take on it, and that I'm enjoying. Actually, that
Mhm.
aspect I'm really finding to be interesting. And the primary relationship, the consistent relationship, is going to be Fushi and the Beholder, plus the Knockers, whatever they are, and however they come into it. But really, it's Fushi and the Beholder, and the dynamic between them, which is very uneven, still very much
Mhm.
in the Beholder's favor. He's holding back all kinds of information. But the more touching, the human aspects of it are these relationships with people that Fushi keeps having, and he's learning stuff from them that the Beholder is not interested in, or even wants to keep Fushi actively away from. So,
Yes. Yes. So when Bon eventually does accept that Fushi, when Bon is starting to learn to prefer other people in the big ways, like he stops taking Toto's food and he requests, can you at least let them out? Keep me, but let them out, right?
yeah, yeah,
So when he eventually offers that same kindness to Fushi and he prefers Fushi instead of trying to get his kingship, he essentially sets Fushi free in giving him the information that he has. What do you think is going to happen? Because all this time we've been grappling with the circle of life and death, the finality of death, the fact that death is a part of life, carrying that person on with you, in like remembering what they cared about and continuing their will, so be it, or just so to speak. Now we know that he can bring them back from the dead. So what are we going to do? Are we bringing these people back from the dead? When we do, what does that mean? Are they going to say, let us go, as like a bit of closure? Is that what you're leaning towards?
I think so. I mean, I think if the story goes in that direction that you're suggesting, which it could, based on what we just saw, I have a feeling that it won't be what being brought back to life is probably all it's cracked up to be. And that,
Pet Cemetery.
yeah, 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 exactly. I mean, you see it in a lot of series. You're reading Malazan right now, right? So when a character is brought back from death, they're not the same person in Malazan, And I suspect something similar probably would happen here. And there's a you're the thing that comes back is very much affected by the experience of death. So I wouldn't expect, we don't get to see that in the princess who is revived. It just seems like everybody's happy there. Maybe they're going to revisit that and show us, something else that's going on with her. I don't know, because it was a
It's
brief.
also very quick for her.
Yeah, so she just was gone for not very long, a matter of moments, I guess, but still, yeah. So I don't know. I have a feeling that this is also going to be one of those. Well, ultimately, death is right, and it's what makes life precious.
Yeah. I
So
really hope so. I think resurrection, to me, resurrection is never done well when it's like,
yeah,
okay, well, no, death doesn't count now.
yeah,
It's Yeah, it's always the Malazan route or the Pet Cemetery route where it's kind of grappling with the reality that death, as you put it, death is right. Death is a part of life, and it's not something that we should be fighting against, and it's not something that we should be trying to undo as much as it hurts. And Fushi has experienced a lot of hurt through the death that he's had to witness and experience, especially because he feels partially responsible for a lot of it. And some of it he doesn't. Like, for instance, Gugu's love, she assumedly died in a very natural way. All we know is that, years and years later, she is now
Brienne is gone.
Brienne.
Yeah.
Brienne, yeah, we know that she's gone now. Probably not in a tragic way, but like that still hurts. That still sucks. It still sucks to outlive people that you love. So I hope that it's going to be that kind of closure sort of way where ultimately we're kind of accepting the fact that death is a part of life. I will be disappointed if it's like, okay, I brought my friends back. Now let's journey together. But I don't think that's what the series is doing.
Yeah. No, I don't think so. Yeah. I will see. I'm very curious. But and there were some cool moments in here. What did you think of the scene or the parts where Fushi was? So he was captured and poured the hot iron on top of him and all of that, and simultaneously, of course, Prince Bon was captured, put in a cage with the little boy whose mother was initially. Bon responds by just callously saying, "Oh, well, your mother's dead. Sorry, kid," and then he's learning compassion in that cage with that kid. Initially he's just taking the bread without thought, and then later he's being actually more considerate. And so we see him beginning to be changed by that experience. But Fuji inside the iron, that was kind of cool, I thought.
Yes, that was very cool.
Yeah.
Let's see. Yes, so it was when Fushi said to the observer, people need to feel satisfied before they die, even if just a little, just enough for one last smile. And then the observer that's when he says, you speak as if you have become human. And Fushi says, yeah, that's right. I love that, recognition of, you know what, I am becoming human. And ultimately, I think that's what his journey has really been about. Is appreciating humanity and becoming human himself, but also just the imagery of him kind of disintegrating, near dying, and then developing this. Let's see, how was it put? Gains the ability to withstand iron and will all across his body, and then he was able to break out. You have that image of him breaking out as this like scalded creature. It was really cool.
That was wild. And also, yeah, I mean, when he finally gets out and there's that, they take that to be him, but he's actually escaped from that even. And he's the bird flying away. You can see his wing there, and you realize, they think he's still captured. They just put some water on it, and they think, they got him. Actually, he's not there anymore. Fushi has left.
Actually, he's breaking Bon out of prison.
Yep. But even before that, like, oh my God, the parts where Bon is in the crate with the little boy and Toto, thank you, was in the other crate, and the balancing thing was really cool. What a nice metaphor.
Cool or terrible?
I mean, it's terrible, but it's a cool metaphor because he's realizing, okay, well, if I get greedy here and I make Toto starve, I'm going to sink. It's like a metaphor for society almost, because if the super wealthy take everything, then they're going to crash the rest of society.
Yeah.
And so there has to be some kind of balance here, So I thought that was cool. But while there's these parallel moments of being restrained, I thought too. Did you want to comment on the crate thing?
Yeah, well, just also okay, first of all, yes, because he wants to be king. That's a lesson that he absolutely has to learn, that just expecting everyone to serve him and give to him constantly at their own expense, he will be a bad king living like that. But then also the little boy, when he came to the realization that his mother was killed just so they could have a balanced scale.
Yeah.
By putting the little boy in there. That's pretty devastating. I mean, that's so cruel.
Yeah, that is some messed up stuff right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this we don't know a ton about the Bennett Church, but it seems that it's at least the upper echelons of its hierarchy believe that whatever they do is right because they're the righteous ones, right? So,
Yeah.
and that's why they can do something like that, I suppose. But I really love that the beholder is talking to Fushi while he's inside this iron, and this whole business here of him being trapped within it.
Mhm.
There.
Yeah.
um, and the dialogue it's almost like he's describing um, a lot of things that humans go through. This feeling of
Mm.
inertia and depression and contemplating what it's like not to exist, and all
Mm.
of these things getting wrapped up in here. It says, restrained with nothing to do but breathe. What is there to be gained when your time is over? For most living things, it is this, almost as if your breath has been stopped. You slowly, slowly forget what you have done, what you wanted to do. And that's a message of despair. That's a message
Mm.
of nothing really matters, right? And Fushi fights that. He does
Yeah.
whatever it takes. Life just, keeps creeping forward. And
Yeah.
I think that's a really cool thing that
Hmm.
doesn't give up. He keeps
Yeah.
going.
That's very well put. And earlier in the volume, Fuchs does say, if one more person that I care about is killed because of the knockers, I will surrender my body and I will cease to exist so that they'll stop fighting. And I think part of that is out of love. But I think that more so it's just a state of what you just expressed. Because if it were just love, then he would say, I'll give my body over now so that they'll stop because I don't want to lose another person. But instead, it's like, I can only take so much of this. And if I lose another person, I'm going to stop fighting. But he finds the will to keep fighting. And I think that that too is a really powerful message.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And, along with that powerful message, there's some nice quirky moments. Prince Bond gives us some great scenes, and it's good to see him becoming a little more thoughtful. And I love his two constant companions, one with his head impaled, and his two ghost companions. I mean, there's just some nice little touches in there. But that final scene, also, I mean, you're kind of wondering what's going to be happening now that he's realizing that Toto he can see the shadow. It's realizing,
Mm-hmm.
oh, Toto,
Mm-hmm.
he's got an
Mm-hmm.
expression on his face there when he realizes, look what I've done. I've done this to you too, haven't I? This person
Yeah.
that I'm using as a chair. So
Yes. So we are going to eventually confront Toto, what we learned about Toto in this volume, which is that Toto was mistaken in that used to work as a maid servant. Is that right?
yeah. Wanted to initially. That was the initial thought. Yeah.
Yeah. And then Bond just assumed Toto was a boy,
Right.
and she just didn't correct him. So we're eventually going to have to confront that as well. And I guess this will also be part of Bond's character arc. Recognize, man, I'm so selfish. I didn't ask anything about this person. And people serve me so willingly that even when I've mistaken their very identity,
Yeah.
that they just go with it.
Yep. Yep. And he goes from that to, being a little bit heroic, tearing up the floorboards when they're having to save themselves. And then finally he goes to, no, you eat it, right? Here's your food. Here you are, Prince. He says, no, you eat it, So he's become a much less self-absorbed person as he's
Yep.
staring death in the face, which happens a lot, actually. A lot of times when people are faced with their mortality, they suddenly become much more thoughtful. Hopefully it happens to people before then, but
Yes, and it looks like he has a lot of life left to live. So here's hoping if he does indeed get this kingship, he'll be able to. I love that panel. He'll be able to live on as a much less selfish man.
Yep. It looks like that's where it's going because Fushi is freeing his friends. So yeah.
Woohoo!
Yeah, good for Fushi. So yeah, overall, I found the storytelling to be more understandable this time, and now I've made my peace. I think with what this series is. Hopefully, I continue to enjoy what comes, and just with the understanding that a lot of these mortal characters that I meet are probably going to be gone in a volume or two, and I'll meet some others, and you know, the fact that I feel some connection to them is a tribute to Oima's storytelling skill and the art, I would say. That's what we've got here, I think. So I'm going to try to enjoy what's coming.
Well, good. It's losing me a little bit, but I'm not giving up on it. I mean, it's short, and I feel like we're building to some interesting ideas. So I'm happy to keep going.
Cool. Good. I'm glad to hear that. Let's see what happens. And the next time we're going to keep doing 2 volumes at a time, though, right?
Yep. So we will do volumes 9 and 10 next week on Philip's channel. So again, that's always linked in the description. So be sure to follow him there so that you don't miss a discussion if you're reading along with us. And we will see you next time. Bye.